Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Movie Talks. My name is Daniel.
And I'm Jared.
And it is here. It is finally here. Our most anticipated movie of the year. Let's talk about it.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
So there's really no way to talk about either the original Blade Runner or 2049 without going into spoilers. So this will be a complete spoiler review for both films.
So if you haven't seen either one, please go watch them and then come back, because this movie is so much fun to talk about. We're going to have so much fun just spoiling everything. So once again, please exit now if you haven't seen them.
Yeah, right. We want to see this new one supported because it's not doing so well at the box office right now. Mm-hmm. And it was a very expensive movie to make. So I'm going to start off by saying, like Jared said, please go see this movie in the theaters. So with that out of the way, I think we'll just jump into our review of both movies.
Okay.
And so I will throw it over to you for your initial thoughts on this new one.
All right. So this new Blade Runner, I did it, guys. I avoided all trailers and everything. TV spots, not posters, but I avoided still images, interviews. I came in completely with a blank slate. I had no idea what was going on, and let me tell you, it was worth it. This movie was so different from the first Blade Runner in its plot structure and its color scheme, because it was just so vibrant. But at the same time, it was such a great continuation of the original story. And I was just completely blown away. I hadn't necessarily loved Denis Villeneuve's previous filmography, but after seeing this movie, wow. I love this guy.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, I've been following his career since 2013. That's when I saw Prisoners in theaters, and I saw Sicario and Arrival, and now Blade Runner in theaters as well. And I'm of the opinion that he does get better with every movie he makes. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say Prisoners is bad. I love Prisoners, but that just goes to show how consistent he is in making great movies.
Yeah. I haven't seen Prisoners. I'm still looking forward to seeing that. Sicario was a little strange. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Mm-hmm. Arrival's really good.
Yes.
So yeah, I do think that this particular movie is but heavily influenced by filmography. Did the original Blade Runner, that was 1982, correct? 82. Okay. I think it was heavily influenced by the movies post-1982 in the sense of its plot structure. It kind of follows the hero's journey in a way. And for those that have seen the original Blade Runner, you'll know that the plot structure is kind of all over the place, and it has an ambiguous ending, and some things feel unresolved, and that's intentional. But in this movie, it feels like it kind of goes full circle. There's the rise of our protagonist. Everything's going well, and then, oh no, something goes wrong, and then he falls into despair, and then he has this uplifting moment, and then he's like, yes, I can go do this. I'm going to go win and defeat the bad guy. And that happens in this movie, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it didn't really feel like the first Blade Runner did when it's over, where you're like, man, that was insane. My mind is spinning, and what really happened? Whereas in this movie, you're able to follow it fairly easily, and it kind of just feels like another sci-fi action movie, but it's not, because it's Blade Runner.
Yeah, okay, see, we didn't say this right up front, but we've seen this movie 2 times now.
Yes.
That was very intentional, because there's a lot of stuff to unpack in this. And the first time around, I, too, was a little bit underwhelmed with the climax of this movie. Because with that first Blade Runner, the last 30 minutes is just like boom, boom, boom. You know, that have that existential crisis with Roy Batty just going absolutely insane.
Just to kind of talk about that, we watched, after we recorded our last episode for Kingsman and It, we went and watched the original Blade Runner just right behind this wall, and it was my second time to see it, and I forgot how just utterly terrifying that scene is.
It is.
And is it a hotel?
It's the place where Sebastian lives.
Yes, it is. It's bone chilling. Not Sebastian. The way that Roy moves and his facial expressions and just how excited he is to be chasing Deckard, it is just terrifying.
Yeah.
And it sticks with you.
And then you get that tears in rain monologue, and then the final unicorn revelation, and it's just like, it's such a satisfying ending in that first film.
Yes, that's the thing. It's satisfying, but you still have questions.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie,
but that's even more satisfying, I think, because you get to talk about it.
And
go back and dissect. And the second time around seeing 2049, I think it was a different story. There's a lot of symbolism in the final fight scene in the car with the drowning and
outside the seawall.
Yeah.
This movie is full of symbolism, which is again why you need to see it a second time.
And really quickly, going back to the plot structure, I almost kind of feel like in both of these movies, there's kind of a lack of it in a good way. Every progression of plot or story, which aren't exactly interchangeable terms, but it's always very natural. There's never like an inconsistency or something that goes, or something implausible.
I agree with that, especially in the first Blade Runner, but in this one, I did feel like there were a few plot points that were forced.
Okay.
I feel
like the horse.
No, I love the horse. Okay. We're gonna talk about the horse a ton, but I don't know her name. The prostitute that sinks with Joy. Yeah, that whole thing felt extremely forced, just so they could plant the tracker that would eventually lead to Kay, Ryan Gosling's character, being brought back to the replicant underground rebellion. That to me felt forced to kind of get to the conclusion of, hey, you need to retire Deckard, which again, we're in spoilers, so if you didn't heed our first warning, please do that now. But I agree with you in the sense of this movie does seem to flow really naturally, because some of these shots are very long. I mean, and you'll have a minute of just Ryan Gosling walking, and in the first one you have Deckard just going through the streets of LA. Mm-hmm. It's a very real movie, and you feel like you're just observing real life.
Yeah. So a good point of comparison between the first one and 2049 is the score.
Oh
my gosh. The original contains my favorite film score of all time. I think it's absolutely amazing.
You had said that after we watched the original, and I had really never paid attention to it, but then I went back and listened to it, and I might have to agree with you on that. And even after seeing
beyond words,
even after seeing 2049, I went home and listened to it all the way through twice.
Yeah,
it's so good, and it actually kind of distracted me the second time we went and saw it last night, because as soon as the music kicks in, I just, oh wow, this is so good. I'm trying to think of the title of each particular song in it, and it contributes so much to the feel of the movie.
Yeah. And Benjamin Wallfisch and Hans Zimmer are the people who stepped in after Johansson abandoned the project. I don't exactly know what happened there, but I am very pleased with what they did with this movie.
Yes.
I've heard a lot of complaints about the score not being evocative enough of Vangelis's original what's the word? Composition. But I definitely disagree, because
oh my goodness, yes.
Although this exists in the same universe of the original, there's a much darker tone. I mean, not much darker, but there's definitely a darker tone in this movie, and it requires a score that similarly evokes a darker atmosphere.
Okay. Yes, I would say that the music is much more intense. And speaking of tone, I want to talk about the setting for this movie. The futuristic Los Angeles that is in the Blade Runner universe, there's something about it. It's so bleak, and it's always raining, and it's dreary, but at the same time, I want to be there.
Yeah, you never want to leave it either.
Yeah, there's something about it. It does seem it's dystopian, and it seems bleak, like a bleak future. There's not much hope, but at the same time, everything seems so orderly, and everyone is functioning well in their roles. Like even just looking at the LAPD building, being inside of it, the lighting and how orderly it is, it just seems like everything is still moving along smoothly.
Yeah.
But then you step outside and it's raining and it's dreary, and the overpopulation is insane. Mm-hmm. There's some at the beginning of the movie when the score plays Flight to LAPD, which is incredible.
Yes.
Some of the city shots of LA show the buildings that have risen and the overpopulation and just how buildings are just stacked and stacked and stacked. And it's beautiful. It looks real.
It does, yeah.
And I do want to talk about, did you think the LAPD building at all resembled a nail?
Huh. I'm picturing it now. I never thought about it when I was watching the movie, but
Yeah, I saw it. And
what would that symbolize?
Well, my initial reactions went to like biblical and the nail, but then I started thinking, okay, it's probably more simple than that. Like, LAPD is the nail, and I would just say that that's kind of just a poke.
Yeah, everything is constructed for a purpose in this movie, and the LAPD building is a very oddly shaped building.
Yeah,
so
it's obviously intentional.
Yeah,
but...
now that I'm thinking about it, there's definitely something behind that. So that's good.
And every time that Ryan Gosling's, are we gonna call him K or Joe?
K.
Okay, so every time
Just
that K
for the most
flashes
part,
his
yeah.
badge, the initial reaction of whoever he does it to is, oh, hey man, no, like when he goes to the orphanage and
Yeah.
Lenny James, or when he's in the, I don't know, but when the prostitutes come up to him and then they're like, oh, he's a Blade Runner, he's bad news. You just get this sense that there's this association with the LAPD that, oh, hey, you don't mess with them. And I feel like that is enhanced by the building being shaped as a nail.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh man, we're just getting into it.
Yeah.
Like that. There's so much.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. There's so much to talk about.
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Did you want to get into? I guess we could go to our theories later.
Okay, yeah.
Because Jared has a lot of symbolism and themes he wants to discuss.
I do. I just want to reiterate. I am an exposition guy, and oh my goodness, this movie is extremely long, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
At least upon the first watching. I think last night was a bit of an exception because I was just utterly exhausted, and we went at 10:20, got out at 1:10.
Yeah.
But the first, I would say even the first hour and 50 minutes is all build up to the climax, and I love every second of it.
Right. Now, see, I like the how disciplined and okay, so the setup part is disciplined, but it's also very intriguing. Mm-hmm. And I like that. But I think the second half is just so far superior. Not far.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the second half, I don't have a single issue.
Really?
From the midway revelation where he finds the horse.
The horse? Okay.
From that scene on, I think this movie takes on a whole nother level of spectacular. And, like...
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the first half had me hooked,
mm-hmm.
but the second half had me floored. Like, both times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I loved the second half, but I once again, I think I like the first half more. And it's not to say that the second half disappointed me. I think it was a little too reminiscent of other movies in the sense that, oh no, something goes wrong. Oh yeah, he's back on his feet. Oh yeah, he punches the bad guy.
Yeah, but then again, like with the midway revelation, it's something that is not true. You know?
Yeah.
They go back on it, and that was something that you never see in movies.
So,
movies rarely lie to you. Like, one that comes to mind is like The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Or a movie that lies to you. But
so, what would you say the climax of this movie is?
The climax? Oh, jeez. Probably. I mean, probably the fight in the seawall area.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let me rephrase that. Not the climax, but the turning point where you said, well, no, you did say it, when everything goes from intriguing to it just floors you. How am I trying to phrase
For me,
this?
I know what you're talking about. For me, that's when he finds the horse in the...
That's when you think everything is kicked into a higher gear?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say not necessarily when he meets Deckard, but when he is taken to the underground replicant rebellion area and he finds out that it's a girl who's the child and
okay,
not...
you think that's the climax.
And not him, which we'll get into that later. But, yeah, and then when they say, you need to go kill Deckard. So I think that is when... That for me is at least when you kind of like get up in your chair and you're like, okay, it's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to talk about the whole child aspect of the movie now and kind of the driving force for the entire plot? Okay.
Yeah.
So, there were a series of shorts released. I think there are 3.
Right.
That kind of bridge the gap between 2019 and 2049. Mm-hmm. And I would recommend not watching them before your first viewing, but after that, if you want to go back and watch them, I would do that. That's what I did. And it really helped piece some things together, and it made the beginning of 2049 a bit smoother, particularly the short that takes place in 2048 with Dave Bautista. His character is Sapper Morton, I think. So that's where the movie first enters at this protein farm, and it's, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You start out with this white landscape, and it's super clean, and then you go to this. He's like farming. The best way I can describe it is caterpillars or something. Mm. And there are these yellows,
almost like maggots.
Oh my! It's so good. And then, so he's there Kay goes there to investigate and ultimately retire Sapper Morton because he is a replicant. And you find out why he's there in the 2048 short, so that kind of helps bridge the gap. But Sapper Morton, he has this sense that he's hiding something. And he has a quote that when he says it to Kay, right before Kay kills him, Kay is he's a newer model. Sapper is a Nexus 8, Kay is a Nexus 9. And so he's talking about, oh, you're going to kill your own kind. And he says, my kind don't run. And Sapper says, yeah, you're right. You newer models are out here scraping expletive. Mm-hmm. And why? Because you've never seen a miracle. And that right there is where you kind of learn that, okay, something happened.
Yes.
And the miracle that he's speaking of is, do you want to say it?
Yeah, the daughter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, some way, replicants were able to procreate and have a child. Mm-hmm. And that is the whole driving force for this movie, is finding that child. Sapper Morton he didn't hide the child. He helped hide Rachel.
Yeah.
Rachel's remains from the original Blade Runner. Rachel is the replicant that Deckard becomes infatuated with and eventually runs off with.
Yeah.
And so there's this box buried outside Sapper's tree, which is another great piece of the film score. But in the box, they find bones of Rachel, and they see, she died during childbirth. There was an emergency C-section, and then they zoom in to reveal her coding was in her bones, and they find out that she was a replicant.
Yeah.
And that's impossible. We have to find this child and retire it before word gets out that replicants can procreate, because that would just shatter the framework of everything.
Right.
And this is where Neander Wallace comes in, Jared Leto's character. At the beginning of the movie, there's the opening title sequence. Not necessarily title sequence, but it kind of sets the stage.
Kind of like how they did
Tyrell Corp in the original Blade Runner has closed after their whole implosion, after the replicant rebellions. And so Neander Wallace steps up with his synthetic farming to remedy famine issues with the overpopulation. And he creates a new line of replicants that obey because they need the slave labor for their farming. And his whole deal is, we need more replicants. And the easiest way to do that is to have replicants create more replicants. And so he's trying to uncover this mystery of how 2 replicants were able to create another replicant. Oh man, I'm talking a lot.
No, it's okay. There's a lot of explanation needed to make
and
this
so
point.
Wallace is kind of set up as the bad guy in a sense, even though I honestly didn't think he was that bad.
Yeah, I mean, they have that scene where with the new replicant.
Yeah.
That kind of sets the stage for his antagonism. But if they didn't have that, then I could definitely see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he it doesn't seem like he has ill intentions for his replicants, because he's a human. So why would he want replicants to take over? He's just trying to create more replicants so that he can, I guess, have a monopoly over every industry or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Where was I going with this?
We were talking. Wait.
We were talking about the child and
Yeah.
how and then they find. Oh, okay. So the race for the child. LAPD. Robin Wright, who does an incredible job in this movie, is Kay's authority, and so she tells him, "Hey, you need to go find the child and retire it, so that this." She calls it a bomb, the bomb of the news, so the bomb doesn't go off, and at the same time, Wallace has a replicant named Love, L-U-V. L-U-V, you said, who's also trying to find the replicant, who's also trying to find the child, and she kind of trails behind Kay because Kay's a Blade Runner, and so he's a little more equipped to do this sort of thing. And they want to find the child so that they can observe it and figure out how this procreation happened. And so that is where that's kind of this setting the stage for the movie. You have Kay trying to find the child, and then you have Wallace Corporation following closely behind him. And so, yeah. That, I think now we can...
and then we get into the whole second half. So that's basically the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
And then we get that incredible scene at the orphanage.
Should we talk about Joy first?
Yeah, we probably should.
Okay. So, in the futuristic Los Angeles, advertising is everywhere. Just... in between the big buildings and stuff. And there's this thing that's repeatedly advertised, and it's called Joy. And the easiest way, I think, to describe it is a visual Siri, in the sense that you talk to it, it responds to you, it gives you random facts, and it's basically a companion. And so Kay has a Joy in his apartment. And I think what's so interesting about their relationship is that they don't... humans don't want replicants feeling emotion.
True.
One of our favorite scenes that we discussed is when Kay is getting debriefed with his baseline, where he's looking at the camera and cells interlinked, and all that stuff. It's an incredible scene. They're just trying to see if his emotions have wavered in any way. And so, in the spirit of trying to keep their emotions contained, they've created this virtual companion that they can express love and admiration and friendship for without getting associated with other replicants, because that could lead to insurrection and anarchy. And so this Joy character, who plays Joy?
Ana de Armas.
Ana de Armas.
Yeah.
She does an incredible job. And Joy plays a pretty significant role throughout this movie. She stays with Kay throughout almost all of it, up until, spoiler, her death.
Yeah.
Yeah. She, I just think it's so interesting that humanity doesn't want replicants to have relationships and emotions, but yet they created a way for them to have fake relationships and emotions.
Right.
It's almost...
It's another layer of... in the first one, they just have replicants, and now they have generated, like, fake entities.
Yeah, it's like a smoke and mirrors deal. They say, hey, you can still have this, but it's not real. And I think this is... Do you want to talk about Joy's death now?
Yes.
This is... The whole smoke and mirrors thing, I think this is one of the most heartbreaking parts of the movie. After Kay finds Deckard, and the whole tracker thing that we talked about earlier, the kind of forced plot point where Wallace... not Wallace. Wallace's people find Kay and Deckard because they've been following him closely. And at the end of this fight scene, Love crushes the Emanator for Joy. And I don't know about you, but I didn't feel much emotion in that moment.
I thought it was pretty effective.
Really? Okay.
It's not something you're focused on at that moment. You're focused on Kay's safety, and then you see the Emanator fly out from his hand, and then everyone's attention is drawn to that, and then Ryan Gosling, Kay, is just like, oh no, because he knows that Love has seen it, and he knows how important, or she knows how important Joy is to him. And
was he reaching for the gun or the emanator?
the emanator.
Okay, they were pretty close together. I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about where the gun was in the scene, but it was definitely.
I think the gun was here and the emanator was here.
Uh-huh.
But okay, I guess my.
Oh, and that's actually kind of cool because he was reaching for the emanator, not the gun. So he's more concerned about her safety than his own, which is interesting because he's kind of more real than she is.
Look at that. We're even coming up with stuff right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, I agree with that. That makes a lot more sense.
Uh-huh.
But so then my question is, why don't they address her death more at the end? I mean, I get that there isn't really that much time to do it.
Yeah.
But Kay never seems like he misses her. And to me, that kind of calls back to the idea that this relationship is fabricated. It's not real. He can feel these emotions when she's there, but when she's not, it's almost as if nothing ever happened. And to me, that calls back on the idea that replicants aren't supposed to have these emotions.
Yeah, and the reason I found the fight by the seawall a little more satisfying the second time around, because I did kind of feel some weight behind the death of Joy, because it wasn't just the fact that Kay was going to protect Deckard. It was the fact that he was getting revenge for Joy, because love killed Joy.
Yeah, okay. Whenever he strangles her.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That
So
does seem more
it's not
satisfying.
addressed in the fact that like someone states it, like Ryan Gosling's like, I'm gonna go get revenge.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there, I think. So
Okay, yeah. You had said that whole at the conclusion of that fight, the scene with Deckard and you said that scene with Deckard and Kay
calling out.
was your favorite, or not your favorite.
Well, that
but
was just one of
favorites.
the more standout moments.
And I thought that was interesting. Why did you? I'm
I'm
not disagreeing with you. I just want to.
It was for me. It was kind of like Kay just showed care towards Deckard by going to save him, and also, like I said, kind of getting revenge on Love. But it's also Deckard returning the favor, kind of, and showing care and compassion towards Kay.
Okay, yeah, I did get that part.
If Deckard is indeed a replicant, it's kind of like looking out for his own kind.
Which is what Roy did for Deckard in the first Blade Runner.
Exactly. If he's a replicant.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We both share the opinion that he is a replicant. I think there's more definitive evidence towards that than because of the unicorn thing.
And I want to get to evidence in a little bit, but
okay.
You said something. What did you say? Oh, Kay getting revenge on Love for killing Joy. I think now that you mentioned that, after Deckard pulls Kay back to the seawall and he says, "You should have let me die out there," Kay's next remark is kind of passive.
Ambiguous.
He says, "You did." And it comes off as if he doesn't really care, in a sense, to me. And that does make sense now, because he wasn't really out there. I mean, he was out there for Deckard, but he was also out there for Joy, and he had already accomplished what he wanted to, and so he was like, "Yeah, whatever." Not whatever, but
yeah, like, you did die, like, you could go
less attached to Deckard than he is to Joy.
Yeah, so that was kind of him fulfilling what he needed to, and then moving on, but also saving Deckard in the process.
Yeah, it just happened along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to evidence that Deckard is a replicant. Is his name Gaff or Graff?
Gaff.
Gaff. And Gaff in the original Blade Runner is the LAPD officer who does the origami and stuff.
Kind of looks after Deckard.
Yeah. He has a cameo in this movie, and he's talking with Kay, and Kay's trying to figure out where Deckard is, where he is and more about him. And Gaff just kind of leans back and says, he's gone. He got what he wanted. And then he ultimately says that he was retired. Or no, because Kay says, "Where can I find him?"
Yeah.
And he says, "You can't. He was retired."
What
And
was it? Was it he's retired or was it he was retired? Because that verb is actually very important there.
That's true.
The thing is, with the word retired, I recognize that that's a word used for like killing replicants, but in the context, it kind of seemed like it was just like, oh, he's retired, he's moved on, he's no longer a Blade Runner.
yeah, okay, but I feel like those two words are too closely related in this universe to where they could use them interchangeably like that. I think that's leaving way too much up to chance.
Yeah, but then again, they want to create so much meaning and ambiguity in this movie that they might just throw something like that in just to have it be able to go both ways.
Okay. I think that it means killed, retired.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so they usually only say retired in the sense of killing a replicant. If it was a human, you would probably just say killed. And so by Gaff saying retired...
Well, but then again, there's some lines in the movie that's like, I've never retired a human before. So it kind of does seem like it would. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much.
So do you think retired relates to killing more, or it's just Blade Runner lingo?
It's probably a term that's used in just as a term for killing.
Okay. Well,
I mean, we can't really know because we never really hear anyone else that's not a Blade Runner or LAPD officer talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Gaff, after he says that, whatever it means, he lifts up a origami sheep.
Yes.
And
that we thought was a bull, or at least I thought it was a bull.
yeah, it looked like a bull at first, because I thought it was like, oh, he wanted the bull. He took the bull by the horns, and it ended up not going his way. But now that it's a sheep, that does kind of call back on the source material, short story by Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep? And so to me, that also kind of supports the idea that he's a replicant, because Deckard's now removed from the picture. He got what he wanted, whether that be he supposedly died or he exited the Blade Runner life. So whenever you go to sleep, it's kind of an escape and you're at peace. And so I think the sheep right there is symbolic of he escaped into his dream, which was being with Rachel away from the Blade Runner life.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think that sheep right there symbolizes peace and escaping reality to kind of go pursue your dream, which is what he did do.
Yeah. Right.
Even though he didn't really get to fully what's the word I'm looking for? Fully experience that, because they had a child and the child needed to be protected, so they had to split. Mm-hmm. So that right there to me is more evidence that Deckard is a replicant. And also, how...
Are you going to talk about the Jared Leto scene? The part at the end, in like Jared Leto's final scene where he's talking about, is this like either before or after Rachel was introduced, where he was like, do you think that it was possible that you were only introduced to Rachel to fall for her in that moment, then to create the child that would... Yeah,
that was such a good scene. But I think you said, did you think it was possible? I don't think he phrases it that way. I think he says, did it ever occur to you? Like he is stating that is your purpose.
Yeah.
And that right there is kind of depressing.
But then again, he says the line, and that is, if you were created.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he said that, and it was like, because it gets a little hazy then, because it's almost like, how could Wallace not know himself? Because LAPD would know if Deckard was a replicant or not.
Blackout.
Okay, yeah, that answers it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the blackout was this blackout. All digital records and
gosh, that's crazy.
And stuff were erased, and that's answered in one of the shorts, one of the 3 shorts that bridge the gap. Man, what were we talking about? We were talking about Deckard's purpose. Yeah. And okay, does that mean Deckard and Rachel are the only Model 7s?
Is Deckard a Model 7?
I think so. Because he has the open-ended lifespan.
Yeah.
Whereas the Nexus 6s in the original Blade Runner only have the lifespan of 4 years.
Right.
Nexus 8s, or maybe he's a Nexus 8.
I don't think he could be a Nexus 8. He must be a Nexus 7. Because Nexus 8s are just introduced in this movie.
Oh. Were they made by Tyrell or Wallace, Nexus 8s?
Ah, gosh. Was this answered in the opening exposition?
No, it wasn't. It just said that Nexus 8s, many of them still are alive, and they're hunted by those who go by the name Blade Runner. I was...
Okay, so maybe... I gotta look this up.
I think... I originally thought he was a 7, but if Wallace made replicants who obey, why would 8s rebel?
Okay, wait 1 second. I'll get back to that. But this says, I mean, again, there might not be a definitive answer because there's not exactly a definitive answer if Deckard is a replicant. But this is saying that Deckard is a Nexus 7.
Okay. That's what I thought, because it would make sense for 2 Nexus 7s. If it was even possible for them to procreate, that it would be 2 of the same model.
Right.
Man. There's a lot to think about with this movie.
There is.
And we haven't even gotten into my 3 favorite symbolism.
Okay, let's get into them.
Okay. Oh, but we have quotes to talk about.
Maybe we'll talk about them along the way.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Deckard has a quote that sometimes to love someone you have to be a stranger, and I think that has a lot to do with I think it has religious implications, but also implications between creator and creation. And the first Blade Runner, the whole story is kind of set around the 4 replicants that escape, trying to get back to their creator.
Right.
And in this one, it has to do with the creators of a child replicant being distant, and they're loving from a distance. And I feel like that has some religious implications because in some religions, Christianity, for example, God is everywhere, but at the same time, it can still seem like he's distant because he's not physically present.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of religious symbolism in the first movie, so that's definitely something that they would add in this one.
Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting perspective between creator and creation, because if you create something, you don't necessarily have to love it, but you had to care enough to actually make it. And so you can still care from a distance. Okay, yeah, here we go. So there's this... we talked about it earlier. There's a dream... the dream that drives Kay is of this wooden horse being thrown into the fire. And this horse this horse, to me, is the crux of this entire movie.
Okay, I haven't heard any of what he's about to say.
Okay. So I'm gonna break it down. I have 3 major points for this horse. This is a little wooden horse. It has a date carved on it. 6/10/21, which is the birthday of the child, I think. Mm-hmm. And so, here we go. Okay. Number 1, I think this horse... I'm gonna list them out and then go back to them. Number 1, the horse is a Trojan horse of sorts. Number 2, the horses represent freedom from restraint. And 3, this is the good one. In the original Blade Runner, Deckard is kind of associated with this unicorn, and then in this one there's a horse, and so the differences between those two.
Okay.
So going back to the Trojan horse, everyone knows the story of the Trojan horse. It was a big wooden horse, and
with people in it.
Trojans hid inside of it, and so it's a big deal that this horse is made out of real wood, because everything in this not in this universe, but in this futuristic world is synthetic. And so the fact that this is real wood is kind of a big deal. Whenever he goes to
Barkat Abdi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's like, man, you're rich.
Yeah. But
I think that this is a Trojan horse, and instead of housing people, it houses memories and secrets. The memory associated with this horse drives the whole story, because it takes Kay to Stelline Laboratories, where they create synthetic memories for the replicants that are still similar to...
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of the Trojan horse. Some of them look very similar.
Yep. Yeah, so this horse houses that memory, or it doesn't house it, but it's associated with that memory that leads Kay to the real child of Deckard and Rachel, which is Anna Stein, who creates the dreams for replicants. And that is my favorite scene by far. So yeah, it houses the secrets of how do these dreams work, or not dreams, but how do these memories work for replicants, because they're based in reality, but then they're altered in some way, and that's where, once again, the line in this universe between reality and imagination is blurred.
Yeah.
You get it all the time with replicants and humans. You don't know which is which. And then, once again, it's here with, is this my memory or is this someone else's?
Right.
Freedom from restraint. Horses, you hear of the untamed Mustang or whatever, and you go out and ride it without a saddle. This is weird. But this represents, for replicants, freedom from restraint of being just a replicant. This horse is associated with the memories of the one replicant or I guess technically the third replicant who breaks the mold, because 1 is Deckard, 2 is Rachel. They made number 3.
Yeah.
And so
nice.
this shows that replicants aren't just synthetic beings. They can. There's a line that says, "Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do." Mm-hmm. Replicants are more than just synthetic beings. They have emotions, and there's the prostitute who sings with joy says, "More human than humans," which is true, because the replicants have this special bond between one another. You see it in the first one, and then you see it in this one with the underground uprising.
Yeah.
Replicants are what humans aren't, in a sense. They're stronger, they have greater relationships, and they can just take every kind of beating, emotionally, physically.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, the horse is just, it shows that this is something different. It breaks the mold. And now the fun one, the unicorn versus the horse.
Okay.
So there's a distinction between, sometimes these are confused. The unicorn and the Pegasus. The Pegasus doesn't have a horn, it has wings. The unicorn doesn't have wings, it has a horn. And so the unicorn is basically a horse with a horn. And in the first movie, the whole idea of the unicorn being associated with Deckard is to show that, hey, this guy's special. He's not just your average Joe, K Joe. But, so it shows that Deckard is special. But when we first are introduced to the horse in this movie, it's in the context of Kay, who thinks that he's special. He thinks that he is the child of Deckard and Rachel.
Yeah.
But he has this horse, and it's not quite a unicorn. It doesn't have a horn, so it's not special. And when he goes to the underground area and they say, no, Deckard and Rachel had a girl, it hits him that he's not the one. He's not special.
Okay.
Horses aren't special. Unicorns are special.
So Deckard had the unicorn dreams, and he is special because he was able to procreate.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah. So Deckard is special because he's associated with the unicorn. Kay is not special because he's associated with the horse. Kay is just another replicant.
Yeah.
They say that all replicants dream that they're the created one, they're the special one.
Right.
But he's not. At the end of the day, he's just a wooden horse that smells like dirt. But then you also run into the line of, well, the horse actually is related to, it belongs to the memory of the actual special child who was born, replicant child. So, but I think that doesn't, I think that it works more in the context of Kay, because throughout the entire movie, the horse is related to Kay. We never once see Anna Stein with the horse. With the horse, we see her. Actually, we don't. That's interesting. Whenever Kay looks into the thing to show Anna the dream, we don't see it.
Yeah.
We just see their two facial expressions, and so that's interesting. That they don't. They do everything they can to not associate the horse with her grown up, and so I don't know. I think that's just. And I think that the horse continually being associated with Kay is just to reiterate that, I mean, he's obviously special because he does so much in this movie to help.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's not the chosen one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the horse.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. I do have stuff to say about the bees too, if we want to talk about that.
Yeah, we can get into that too if you want.
So when Kay goes to look for Deckard, he goes, I heard it was Las Vegas. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's Las Vegas.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's
my favorite shot of the movie is as soon as cuts to Ryan Gosling walking in that orange haze.
Oh my gosh.
The drums, dude.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But he's scanning. He's not scanning. This drone thing that pops out of his car is scanning for heat signatures, and there's this big blur of movement. And so he goes and observes what it is, and it's a beehive colony thing, bee farm. And this is interesting because it's in the middle of nowhere. You automatically know that it's associated with Deckard because Deckard's the only one out here.
Right.
And so, of course, you have to look at bee symbolism. Bees represent community and peace. The community is kind of ironic because Deckard is isolated
right.
But the peace is not because he's to himself and he's isolated in a way that he doesn't have to deal with the hustle and bustle of LA and all the side effects that would come with him still being prominent because he is a big figure in the replicant workings. Okay, this is a bit of a stretch, and at this point, I'm just saying whatever pops in my head. Bees should not be able to fly. Based on their body size and their wings and stuff, it's some scientific thing. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Bees should not be able to fly. Replicants should not be able to procreate. Deckard breaks the mold. Bees break the mold. The bees and Deckard come together to symbolize, hey, we shouldn't be able to do this, but we can. So we're special. And I think like the bees are obviously there for a certain reason. There's a reason there that it's a beehive and not a worm farm or something.
And why does Ryan Gosling reach into that, whatever that was? I'm sure there's something there too.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, when the Blu-ray comes out, I'm gonna just pick this thing apart. But
yeah. So I think that bees shouldn't be able to fly. They are the exception. They're special, and the fact that Deckard has created this community for bees and stuff, I think it's just to reiterate that he shouldn't have been able to do this. He shouldn't have been able to create a child and then escape and just live this existence separated from everything because he's the unicorn. He's special. Deckard shouldn't be able to fly in the ways that he does, but he is. He's able to change the existence of replicants, and so that's what I think the bees stand for.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Gosh, I mean, I don't even know what to say.
There's so much to talk about.
I just want Denis Villeneuve to sit down and just confirm this.
Oh my gosh. But okay, that's an interesting thing. He said that he doesn't feel like he had. I don't know exactly how he worded it. It's not necessarily that he doesn't have the right to, but he doesn't feel like he has the responsibility to kind of bookend this story.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Ridley Scott felt the same way.
Yeah, well, okay. I don't think that Denis feels the sense to explain everything like we kind of want him to.
Oh no, yeah, I know I said that, but Denis Villeneuve is a guy who's show don't tell, and he's not going to explain everything he puts in his movies.
Show don't tell.
Yeah. There
are so many extended, beautiful shots in this movie where there isn't even dialogue, and it's just facial expressions, and you're able to get every ounce of emotion out of it, and it's oh my gosh. This movie is so good.
It's very good.
I will say that I enjoyed it more on my first viewing, but
really?
I think that's just because of the time I went and saw it last night. I'm sure my third viewing I'll love even more, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've been talking the whole time. Do you have anything?
Yeah. Well, like I said, most of my stuff is just relating the first movie to the to this new one. We didn't really talk about cinematography. I mean, we don't really need to because everyone knows it's amazing.
Yeah.
We all hope it wins the Oscar.
I hope it wins for score too.
That would be sweet. Yeah. And everything in this movie, like the score, the cinematography, the performances, the writing, or lack thereof, it's just it all makes this incredible atmosphere that you just don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Just like the first movie.
Like we said, there's something so captivating about this world that seems like it's supposed to be so bleak, but yet you want to continually be in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
How long was your review you wrote for it?
It's like 4 paragraphs.
Okay. It's longer than your Ghost Story one.
Yeah.
Was Ghost Story this year?
Yeah.
And that was your number 1 coming into this, right?
Yeah, it was.
Has it been dethroned?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
Because we are going to do a top 10 of the year list, of course,
Ah,
at the end.
yes. Have to do that.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of Jared Leto?
He was awesome. He was fantastic. I wasn't not a big fan of him in Suicide Squad.
His character Neander Wallace is blind, and apparently he lived as a blind person for a month.
Yeah, and had to do all of his scenes blind. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting.
He had this very strange sense about him. We kind of said that he's supposed to be the bad guy, but it doesn't really feel like he is. He has this very stern appearance where he seems constantly angry. Or just kind of grizzled, and he doesn't show hardly any emotion.
Almost like he's just there for the facts, and he just wants to. It's almost like he just wants to take over the world. He's kind of power hungry, I guess.
Mm-hmm. He, in some ways, he seems more robotic than replicants.
Yeah, it's another thing.
But yeah, I enjoyed his look. The way he looked was really cool, I thought, with his slicked back hair and his beard, and the contact lenses that he had in his eyes were very convincing. They were clouded, and just his facial expressions and the way he moved his head when he talked. It's not the natural way that we move it when we talk, because we can see.
Uh-huh.
And so he got the. I don't want to sound like I'm an expert on blind person mannerisms, but I thought he did a very good job. Man.
Yeah. Golly.
This movie is so good. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it, honestly.
Okay. I think I like the original more than this one still.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah. Grades?
Wait, for which movie first?
For both. For the original first.
Okay. I think okay. You've said this before. You said it's the third viewing of Blade Runner where it just smacks you in the face.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some people, it's the fourth.
Okay.
It's usually just the third or the fourth.
So I've only seen it twice, and I already love it. So I have a feeling that my third viewing is just gonna absolutely knock my socks off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give the 1982 Blade Runner a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Okay. For me, I have seen it 4 times, and it was kind of the second viewing, but really the third viewing. That really made me love it so much. I think it's an absolute masterpiece, and it's in my top 15 right now after the recent rewatch. So I'm going to give it 5 stars.
All right.
Yeah.
So being of the opinion that the original is better than this one, it kind of puts me in a difficult situation for ranking the second one, because it's not a 5, but I think it's better than a 4. But I can't. I feel like I can't.
Oh, you could give it the same grade.
I think I'm gonna give it.
I don't think you could do a 4.
I'm gonna give it a 4 2/5.
Okay.
How's that? So yeah, so a 4.4. It's
4.4. Okay.
Yeah, it's really. This is a really good movie. I think visually it's a little bit better than the first one, even though not to detract from the first one at all, because for that being made in 1982
and with 35 million.
Oh my gosh, it holds up so well.
Yeah, practical effects, and there was a lot of practicality in this movie too. Mm-hmm. Apparently, in the apartments, I watched the YouTube video about the production design, and apparently his apartment, there was that glass and there was buildings on the other side.
Mhm.
Those were real. Like those were actually
Really?
constructed buildings on the other side.
And you're only in that room for maybe 3 or 4 scenes.
Yeah.
So
There's
that's
incredible
dedication.
attention to detail in this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not quite on the level of the first one,
Mhm.
but I've only seen it twice. And
Yeah.
it could be the kind of the same thing where the third viewing is just like you pick up on more and more stuff, and it just gets better and better. I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars.
Okay.
So it's almost there. Yeah, definitely 4 would be way too low. I think
Way too low.
way too low.
Whereas for any other movie, a 4 would be amazing.
Good.
Yeah. This is my favorite movie of the year so far. Is it yours?
Oh yeah,
too?
yeah.
Okay. Man, this movie's just so good. Denis Villeneuve did an incredible job.
Yeah, he did. He's a big fan of the first movie, and he's just a fantastic director himself. So he was the perfect choice.
Yep.
For directing the second one.
I could watch this movie every day, even though it would take up a lot of my day.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. So I think that wraps up all we have to say about the 2 Blade Runners. So I think right now we can jump into our recommends.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to go first.
Yeah. Since we're on the topic of Blade Runner, and the new one stars Ryan Gosling, I'm gonna recommend Drive, which is my favorite Ryan Gosling movie. Yeah. So it's
Over this?
over this and over.
Really?
I mean, I suppose I could grade this. I mean, I give Drive 5 stars.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay. I have Drive.
Is spectacular.
I haven't. I've started it. I haven't finished it. So I guess I need to do that. Wow.
Yeah.
You have it over Blade Runner. Wow. Okay.
It's amazing.
Do you have it over the original Blade Runner?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So for me, I didn't really want to do a Denis Villeneuve movie because I've only seen those about one time. I don't really have a good handle on them. I was thinking about Drive, but I haven't seen all of it. La La Land, everyone knows, and so I'm just gonna throw all that out, and I'm just gonna talk about the 3rd season of Rick and Morty, finished a few weeks back, and this is such a dark, witty, hilarious animated show that is kind of a spin-off of Back to the Future over there. The dynamic between an old, crazy grandpa scientist and a young middle school boy. It's a lot of fun. It sometimes is a bit questionable, and the themes that it dives into are very mature and advanced, and it'll blow your mind if you're not ready for it. But yeah, so that's you can watch the end of season 3 on Adult Swim. I think it's on Hulu. So yeah, I would recommend that.
I haven't seen Rick and Morty. I guess I should start it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I do need to start Breaking Bad though.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's just too much stuff to watch. Not enough time. All right. Well, that was a fun episode.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna cut it off before we get to the.
Yeah,
1
we are
hour
at
mark.
58:30 right now. So once again, go see Blade Runner. It's totally worth it. All right. So I think that wraps up episode 8 of Movie Talks. Once again, I'm Jared.
And I'm Daniel.
And we will see you next time.